All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Hey, good morning. It's the Mark Thompson Show. Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson along with Albert. What's going on, my friend?
Good morning, Kim. It's Thursday. I feel like I haven't seen Mark in a really long time.
It's been a while. We had him on the Dream Team panel yesterday, which was pretty cool. But he calls me every night to talk about like the show. He has a hard time taking a vacation, so I feel like we've been in contact. So I don't know. I'm not missing him as much as I could be.
I think Courtney needs to schedule somewhere to go where there's no cell reception,
exactly.
No internet.
Yes.
A complete detachment from normal life, you know, because
right.
I feel like he does talk about the show a lot, though.
Yeah. But I get that, he cares about it. We all care about it. We want it to succeed. And we've been successful so far in trying to grow the show. We're still continuing on that journey. It's been a year, more than a year now. And we're going to keep it rolling in 2024. So I get why, why he cares about it. It's his baby and he wants to help it grow up. Well, that's great. Like a music channel. Right. So we have a lot of good things coming up on the show today. Robin Keats is a television producer. He's an author. He has some exciting new projects in the works. Mark sits down with him for a discussion, which we will have on the show. Thursday, of course, brings David Katz to the Mark Thompson Show. And there's a lot of legal issues to talk about today, you could say. It's the Planet Stupid with Belinda Waymouth. Today, she's looking at the best eco wins of 2023. So that will be some positive news. We'll see what we have done to better the planet this year. So that's Belinda. First, though, I wanted to talk about Rudy Giuliani. Did you see this story that, he was just required to pay about $150 million to these two poll workers that he defamed, then went outside on the courthouse steps and seems to have defamed them again because he said everything I said the last time is true, true, true. And maybe he did that because he knew he was going to do this. Rudy Giuliani has declared bankruptcy after being ordered to pay $150 million in this defamation suit.
There's never been anything like this.
Rudy, what are you doing? He filed in New York today for bankruptcy, just days after this ruling in this case where he was ordered to pay big money. And by the way, after the second alleged defamation, the two poll workers are suing him again. Giuliani lists his debts between $100 million and $500 million and assets only worth up to $10 million. The bankruptcy declaration, another setback for Giuliani. He lists nearly $1 million in unpaid taxes among his liabilities, hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to lawyers and accountants. Well, if maybe if you stop being a nasty person and, saying horrible things about people, you wouldn't be sued.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
His pending lawsuits include 3 defamation cases over his statements after the 2020 election that have not yet gone to trial and could likely add to his debt if he's ordered to pay damages in those cases. Giuliani's political advisor says the filings should be a surprise to no one. No person could have reasonably believed that Mayor Rudy Giuliani would be able to pay such a high punitive amount. This bankruptcy will afford Giuliani the opportunity and time to pursue an appeal while providing transparency for his finances under the supervision of a bankruptcy court. So what's the penalty then? What's the penalty? These women were threatened. They had to seek protection. In some cases, move out of their homes because of threats. So how do you make them whole? Just declare bankruptcy. Sorry, don't have the money to pay you. Meanwhile, you're saying the same things about them that you said that got you into trouble in the first place. It's really quite outrageous. Really.
It seems like that's the double down is what he's been doing a lot.
Exactly.
A lot of
Because he knew
people who's with
wasn't paying.
Trump kind of just double down with everything.
No. Giuliani's attorney said that what the women that he said horrible things about, the poll workers, were asking was the civil equivalent of the death penalty. Really? Really? No. They said they're trying to end Mr. Giuliani. Well, wouldn't that be nice? Not end in a physical sense, but end in his ability to be able to do these things. The problem is with people like this is I wonder if they really have control over what's coming out of their mouths. So maybe there's some type of mental deficit that prevents him from really being in control of his faculties. And that's why he's saying what he's saying. That's why he's acting how he's acting. But then if you have someone that just will declare bankruptcy, trying to get out of everything, well, what good does that do? And then there's no consequence for him because he can open his mouth and say whatever he wants to say and truly hurt with words the people that he's talking about. And there's no consequence at all. None. No. So he'll declare bankruptcy and the women will get nothing. And I don't know what this all has been for then, honestly. I mean, other than to have some type of vindication for them that, yes, they were defamed. This is horrible. We talk about the United States of guns, and apparently it's now bleeding out into other countries. 15 people at least were killed in this university shooting in Prague. The Czech prime minister says there's no justification. This was a senseless attack. This awful. This person apparently opens fire near Charles University, which is now canceling events. They're tightening up security measures after this deadly shooting. The quote from the university today is, "We now ask everyone to remain calm and composed, and we extend our condolences to all of those whose hearts have been broken by the loss of loved ones." So 15 people dead here, dozens of other people wounded. The university is offering psychological help, as they often do, to people who need it. It's horrible. And they're not used to this in this part of the world. So European leaders are coming out and offering condolences. They're expressing shock and sadness, as it should be, because here in America, it's par for the course. It's just
this is like a bottom news story.
Exactly.
On the daily news,
I mean, really. Yeah, we'll talk to David Katz coming up about this law in California that is being blocked by a federal judge. It would have banned carrying firearms in most public places, and a federal judge says, "No, California, you can't do that." So we'll talk more about that with David Katz. I want to get his take on it, but it's another one of these things that you wonder, well, if we can't do that, what can we do? What are we allowed to do then to help people from to keep people from being killed? Then what's going to be something that we can do? And there's no solutions given. None. Well, it's a mental health issue. Okay. How are we going to fix that? No solutions given. Really frustrated. Speaking of guns and violence, I don't know if you said that, didn't mean that for this to be a law and disorder, but here in the Bay Area, there was a pizza delivery guy working, probably not making much money. He shot and killed in his car Wednesday afternoon while sitting in his car in Oakley. Crazy. It happened in the late afternoon, just a little before 5:00. The police arrive. They find this 24-year-old man still inside of his car, injured from gunshot wounds. They revived him, but he ended up being pronounced dead on the scene a little bit later. So he had parked his car outside of his home to take a break while he was delivering pizzas, and another vehicle pulled up right alongside. A passenger stepped out and just shot him. And this is how we roll, I guess, in California, and we can do nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. It's very frustrating. I mean, you feel helpless, honestly.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
always it kind of feels like wrong place, right, wrong time, and that's
yeah,
sad because it shouldn't be like that. We should feel a lot more safer going out anywhere. And I don't know. I'm curious if this was premeditated or if he was
yeah,
targeted because that seemed a little too random, like
yeah,
just out of the blue.
yeah. I don't know. I read the story that, a lot of people talking about the Colorado ruling. Another thing that we'll talk to David Katz about, but a YouGov poll was done in the hours after the ruling, and about 3,500 people were asked, um, do you approve of the Colorado Supreme Court ruling to take Trump's name off of their primary ballot in 2024? And the results say, yeah, more than half of Americans that were polled approve of the Colorado Supreme Court ruling to bar former President Trump from that state's primary ballot because of the 14th Amendment. It was an online survey published just a day after the ruling. 54% of respondents either strongly or somewhat approved of the decision. 35% disapproved of that decision. Um, Trump, we know, is going to appeal this case. The Supreme Court likely to decide whether he incited the riot, whether his name can be stricken from the ballot. But nearly 2/3 of Democrats, 63%, strongly approved of that ruling, according to that poll. 21% somewhat approving. Independents were split on this matter. A larger proportion of them, though, supported this decision, which I think bodes very well for the upcoming election. 48% of independents compared to 35% were in favor of the Colorado decision. Only about 25% of Republicans said they support the ruling, 12% strongly supporting it. It has received partisan support. Of course, Democrats would be more supportive of it. But Republicans say it could really mean chaos for electoral politics. And that's kind of what Mark was saying the other day, too, that, if you open this can of worms, then all of a sudden people are being accused of inciting an insurrection for their words on anything. And so then it's used as a political tool. 43% of Americans polled on this, though, expect this case to be overturned when the Supreme Court eventually hears it. This YouGov poll asked people to estimate where the high court is going to land on this. And here's what those asked think. 43% expect the case to be overturned. 23% believe it will be upheld. Are those the optimists that think the Supreme Court isn't swaying toward Trump? I don't know. A third of Democrats say they believe the court will keep Trump off the ballot. It was 3,500 people online that were asked over the course of Wednesday. They say the margin of error is about 4% on this poll. Interesting. I think the numbers are very interesting on this poll. You have more than half of Americans saying, yeah, Colorado Supreme Court got it right. And then you have, while it's very partisan, you still have that independent decision where 48% of independents say it was the right choice compared to 35% who say it wasn't. And if that's true, then it may follow that independents will more likely vote for Biden in an election. And if that's, the case, then thank God, because it gives me a little bit of relief to think that this person may not be back in the White House. So, Square writing today, can the SCOTUS interpret the 14th Amendment to set the bar? Insurrection is a no-no. It seemed, and we'll ask David Katz the question, thank you, Square, that it seems like a pretty cut and dried situation. Or maybe it was David K. Johnston who was saying there are certain rules that certain requirements that you have to meet to be the president. And if you look at the 14th Amendment, this qualifies as well. So I don't know if they have to interpret it or if it just is an obvious that this falls under this rule. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm feeling hopeful with the numbers of independents. It's grasping at any straw that will show me that we're not headed toward another Trump presidency. I don't know. I don't know. Tom says, yeah, it's true. Trump tried to get Obama off the ballot. Such a hypocrite. As you know, saying let the voters decide and then trying to get somebody off the ballot. Yeah, it's true. Karen writing, we cannot depend on the Supreme Court to determine the truth or administer justice regarding Trump's part in the insurrection. That is what a lot of people are thinking, that, you know, can we trust the Supreme Court when you've seen the corruption? You've Clarence Thomas, you know, on the take. I don't know. After the decision with Roe v. Wade, I have very little trust in them as well. Humongous thank you to Pamela Kirby today. She says I'm killing it. I don't know about that. The Dream Team yesterday was a great show. I listened after hours. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, please go back and watch that. We had David K. Johnston, David Katz, Michael Shore, Mark from the cruise ship, all talking about the Colorado ballot issue, and it was a really, really good segment. So if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. And Pamela, thank you for the $10 super sticker. So appreciate it.
I think we have 5,000 views on that already, which is pretty good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so people are tuning in.
I wish I could show it to more people. You know, I wish more people share that. Please share it around.
Thank
you, Pamela Kirby, for that contribution. And thank you to everyone who contributes to the Mark Thompson Show. We need all the help we can get here in the financial department to keep Albert and Tony and myself and Mark keeping the show going. And it's important because we have moments like that. We have these moments where maybe it's a perspective that isn't often heard in the media, or we need to hear more of. I don't know, but I feel like what we're doing is important.
It felt like one of those, you know, those political channels, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, that when they have just a panel of experts weighing in on something.
Yeah.
We had our own Mark Thompson flavor to that.
We absolutely did. I loved it. Let's talk California politics because it looks like, according to this article in Politico, that Adam Schiff seems to be riding high when it comes to the California Senate race. He's in the clear lead to represent California. This is a Politico Morning Consult poll saying he's well positioned to advance after the March primary. He's doing really well. The number 2 spot is between Republican Steve Garvey and Democratic Representatives Katie Porter and Barbara Lee, and they're in a dead heat. Garvey is saying he's a Trump agnostic moderate, according to Politico. Of course, Porter and Lee are more closely aligned with Schiff and Democratic ideals. The second place, though, spot determines whether this November election is going to be a battle between Democrats or whether it's going to be, you know, introducing some red possibly into California's Senate race. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know. But right now, as it stands, the race is, the numbers are, read this, Adam Schiff at 28% of the likely voters, Steve Garvey at 19%, Katie Porter at 17%, and Barbara Lee at 14%. And given the margin of error, they're saying that Garvey, Porter, and Lee are kind of neck and neck. So
Christina Pascucci, remember we had her on the show. She's actually at 4%. She's actually on this poll.
She is on this poll, 4%. I don't think that's enough to push her up, but hey, she, you know, recently started, and so we'll see if she can't push it up a little bit.
I'm going to claim that to the Mark Thompson bump, maybe?
The 4%, the Mark Thompson
that was
bump.
us. Yeah.
I don't know. It looks like Adam Schiff has this one in the bag, but it'll be interesting to see whether he has to run against Steve Garvey, the Republican, or whether he gets to run against another Democrat. And it, you know, maybe it's the Californian in me. I didn't really think that a Republican had a chance to be, you know, so high in the polls. But there's a lot of Republicans in California, especially Southern California and the inland areas. And so I don't know. I have to maybe look a little bit more at Steve Garvey and what he has to say. I tend to want to keep our Senate blue, and you know, the more Democrats we have in the Senate, the better it will be for women's rights and everything else. So, but I'll take a look at Steve Garvey. I don't know. Adam Schiff doing really well, though. A notable bump for Garvey from previous polls of this race. He declared his candidacy in October, and he's really had a minimal campaign presence, which is one of the reasons it's so interesting that he's jumped up in the polls a bit. It would be, according to Politico, a coup for Republicans if they managed to get him onto the ballot, past the primaries, if he manages to get onto the ballot there.
I guess less is more, Kim, and the more you talk, the more you kind of like dig yourself in a hole sometimes, I feel like, with these politicians. So
It's true. Mm-hmm.
It's working. I don't know what he's doing.
Whatever he's doing, I guess he
also
should keep on doing it.
He's a former Dodger pitcher, so I'm
Yeah.
also not too thrilled about, like, personally
about for a Dodger, like that'll do him in right there. No.
Yeah, no, that's an instant no for me.
He doesn't have the Bay Area vote. Absolutely not. Let's talk about this man. And I just was mentioning him on Nikki's show, but I wanted to talk about this Bay Area. They call him a serial shoplifter. He's been arrested 90 times in the East Bay for shoplifting.
There's never been anything like this.
It probably has, but this guy, I'm telling you, he is a homeless guy. He's drug addicted. And he will take whatever he can to fuel his addiction, to try to sell stuff to get more drugs. So obviously a problem. In some cases, he's been arrested twice in the same day. They arrest him, they book him into jail. 2 hours later, he's back on the street, shoplifting again. Yeah, his name is Jesse Leonardo Otero. And he's a sad sack. He really is. I mean, you feel bad for this guy. He's so drug addicted. This is his life, going out trying to steal stuff, right? It's his regular routine to get arrested 90 times. 90 times. Most recently in Pleasant Hill. One of the reporters that works for Cron asked the question, "Don't you get sick of being arrested?" And he just looked at the camera, said an expletive, what have you. He is well known to law enforcement officers. This is how he survives, by stealing stuff and selling it. He supports his drug addiction by trespassing, shoplifting, selling stolen property. This, according to police. He steals from familiar victims as well. They all know him in this area. And they say he walks into the store and they say, "Listen, you're not supposed to be coming in here anymore. You can't go." The people in the stores, running the stores, say he will take whatever he can and shove it into his pockets and walk out. Yeah, here's this crazy thing. He was arrested at the Crossroads Shopping Center in Pleasant Hill. And just hours earlier, he'd been released from the Martinez detention facility on misdemeanor charges. It's not just in Pleasant Hill. He goes around the Bay Area on BART. In Richmond, Pinole, El Cerrito, Walnut Creek, Concord, Pleasant Hill, Danville, Albany, wherever BART goes, he goes and steals stuff, allegedly. All the store shopkeepers know him by first name. Often they have a picture of him behind the counter. Like, if this guy comes in, you know it can't be good. But it's the frustrating part. 90 times you're arrested. And you get out the same day and you go back and you reoffend, allegedly. So why do we let these people do this over and over and over again? This is maybe where the care court comes into play, right? Where he may not accept help, or he may not want to go into a drug program or whatever. But maybe this is how you get someone like this off the street. I don't know. I don't know. But this is from Cron 4. Under California's laws, thieves can count on serving almost no time behind bars before they're back on the streets and ready to steal again.
Yeah, it kind of ties in with our break-ins, our those mass shoplifting incidents that happen. It all kind of ties in that we actually can't do anything here.
It's a revolving door. And then we're surprised that we have this big problem when we're not taking any steps to fix it. Now there's a major retail theft criminal task force that Governor Gavin Newsom has convened, and that's great. But I don't know if you saw the story, and we'll again present this one to David Katz, with this federal judge in San Francisco who, when confronted with whether to accept plea deals, from criminals in the city, most of them doing drugs or selling drugs in the Tenderloin, says, no, this plea deal is too lenient. There's not enough. I reject it. No. And so I get that prosecutors need to get things done and need to get these cases moving, but there's no teeth. There's no deterrent to say, listen, if you steal, if you're doing drugs in public, what have you, that there's anything that's really going to happen to you. It's really frustrating. I think we should all be frustrated by this and demand better. Because if we don't, then what do they say? If you do what you've always done, then you'll get what you've always gotten. Poor English, but that's to say, if we don't change anything, if we don't take steps to fix this, we're just going to keep getting more of the same, and more businesses closing, and more police officers frustrated that they're spinning their wheels and arresting the same people over and over and over again. I think that's a huge issue in California, something we need to really, really tackle and take a look at. All right, Albert, let's do a little bit of news before we get to Robin Keats and Mark Thompson. How about we do that?
Yeah, and I actually just there's a kind of like a troll in the comments. I want to say I'll take personal. I hand up here, Kim. I was the one who banned him. It wasn't.
Oh, did you?
So, yeah. So,
okay. Well done. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was talking. I wasn't looking. So
I took care of it. So yeah. But news, and then that Robin Keats.
All right. Very good.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. A 12% decrease in airfare from last year is a major reason. The record number of air travelers is expected during this holiday season. Today, a huge day for airline travel. Airlines predict more than 39 million passengers will pass through airports by the time the 14-day holiday period concludes. Everyone hoping to avoid a repeat of last year's nightmare after a snowstorm triggered Southwest Airlines meltdown that canceled nearly 17,000 flights. That one was a doozy. The special counsel prosecuting former President Trump for election interference wants the Supreme Court to immediately rule on Trump's claims of presidential immunity. Special counsel Jack Smith filing a formal motion today. The former president wants a federal appeals court to make the ruling. As a matter of fact, Trump said, "Hey, Supreme Court, you go and take your time. You don't need to move fast on this. It's all right." As we mentioned earlier, at least 15 people are dead, 24 more injured after this mass shooting at a university in Prague. The shooting happened at Charles University, located near the Charles Bridge, which is a very popular tourist site. Officials say the gunman was also killed. A call this morning between high-level U.S. and Chinese military leaders marks the first conversation between the two militaries in more than a year. Details are not available about what exactly was discussed between the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, and his Chinese counterpart. President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed, though, to start communications or restart them during a meeting last month in San Francisco. Well, we know it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? But it's also the most heart attacks happen during this time of year than any other time. Research shows heart attacks increased 37% on Christmas Eve, and that more people die of heart attacks in the last week of December. Doctors say cold weather, added stress, and overindulgence in rich food and alcohol are contributing factors to this. So, man. As we mentioned earlier, yes, a Northern California pizza delivery man has died after being shot right in front of his own house. Police in Oakley were called to Rutherford Lane just before 5 p.m. last evening. After reports of shots fired, they arrived to find this 24-year-old victim suffering from gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead. The pizza man was on a break sitting in front of his own house when a car pulled up alongside the passenger and the passenger opened fire. The police chief, Paul Beard, says the man's mother watched her son get shot. They're looking for anyone with information, any security camera footage. They're asking folks to contact the Oakley police so they can investigate and have some evidence here. In the Southern California area, there's a man in Lemon Grove accused of a shooting spree being ordered to stand trial for murder and attempted murder. This shooting spree lasted just over an hour, spanned 3 San Diego neighborhoods. The victims included 3 teenagers and a 32-year-old man who died at the scene. Detectives say this is a pattern of attacks through a combination of eyewitnesses and victim accounts and surveillance footage. They put it together. The hearing also featured Snapchat messages allegedly sent from this man showing multiple attempts to buy a gun. He was arrested in his car about a half hour after that shooting spree. A teenager is safe and a suspect in custody after an Amber Alert. 43-year-old Lorenzo Carlos Guerrero is under arrest in Tecate. That's where police found the suspect with a 13-year-old child. The FBI issued an Amber Alert earlier this month. They had offered $10,000 in reward money for information in the case. The FBI announced the arrest last night. Mexican prosecutors say this man will face extradition procedures. The FBI says he'll then answer for a kidnapping charge in the Southern District of California. So good that that person was found. Former President Trump says he's not an insurrectionist. His comment on Truth Social today comes after the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that he engaged in an insurrection during the 2021 Capitol riot and cannot run in that state's presidential primary. He does plan to appeal the decision, but Trump noted that he told his supporters on that day to march to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically. His supporters violently stormed the Capitol in an effort to stop the certification of President Biden's election win. The former president also claimed President Biden is an insurrectionist and a threat to democracy. I don't know how you swing that one. President Biden yesterday told reporters it's self-evident that Trump supported an insurrection. So, yeah, that's what we have there. A New Hampshire man is facing federal charges for allegedly threatening to kill 3 presidential candidates. The Justice Department announced 30-year-old Tyler Anderson is being charged with 3 counts of transmitting a threat. Anderson was first arrested earlier this month after he allegedly sent text messages threatening to kill GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy and attendees at a campaign event. Man, people are getting nasty. Lastly, let's talk about the Golden Globes host. It's comedian Joe Coy that will be hosting the 2024 Golden Globes. The hosting gig is Coy's first major award show. The actor has starred in films like Haunted Mansion and Easter Sunday, along with releasing 5 stand-up specials on Comedy Central and Netflix. And Coy says stepping onto the Golden Globe stage will be extra special and a moment where he gets to make his Filipino family proud. The 81st annual Golden Globes is being held January 7th in Beverly Hills. So, and another one of these stories, oh, I love them. A book that was taken from the Watertown Free Public Library has been returned 90 years late. The copy of the book Hill Towns of Italy by Egerton Williams Jr. was checked out in January of 1934. The book was found by someone in Washington, D.C. and returned to the library by this person during a recent visit to Boston. Based on the policy pasted in the book, the fine would have been more than $650, but the library no longer charges late fees. Crisis averted. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. Find them at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and then you can order from anywhere. I'm in love with the mint teas, the Moroccan mint and the ginger mint teas. Also, the hibiscus tea is amazing. Mark is in love with the coffees, and my husband is really enjoying the holiday blend. So, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, the best coffee Mark has ever tasted, and really the best tea I've ever tasted as well. So if you're a tea drinker, check it out. The teas are about $9.95-ish a bag, and they last for quite a while. So check it out. It's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Get your 10% off. They're great for gift giving and great just to have around as well. So CoachellaValley.
Like a late stocking stuffer, Kim.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe a little gift for the new year, right? I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Excited to welcome in a writer, a producer, a print journalist, an investigative journalist. He's done long-form interviews with a lot of luminaries from Elon Musk to other captains of industry. And he's always working on something interesting. And as I was speaking to him, I said, God, I really would like my audience and the people who join us on the show to hear about what you're up to. How about it for Robin Keats, everybody? Hello, sir.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. You've got that whole evening at the Improv background going, which I love, if we've got time later.
Not a lot of humor to it, but at least the wall gives the indication that maybe there will.
There is a famous comic in your personal history, isn't there?
There is, indeed.
Tell everybody the story about Jay Leno.
Well, he dates back to my freshman year of college at Emerson College in Boston, and I got put into the transfer dorm because originally, because of my first name, they put me in the girls' dorm, and when I showed up, there weren't co-ed dorms yet, and they said, no, we don't think so. Men's dorm still got the transfer dorm, where I confront Jay Leno, who, unbeknownst to me, is my first roommate, and he introduces himself to me and me to him, and says, first thing out of his mouth is, what do you want to do? And I knew I wanted to be a journalist or a writer of some sort, and told him that. And I asked him the same question, and he said, I am going to be the host of The Tonight Show. It wasn't a late night show. It wasn't a comedian. It was that specifically. So probably the most focused guy I've ever met.
And did you stay in touch with him before you came out to Los Angeles at all?
I did. We stayed in touch because I was working in magazines in New York after college at the New Yorker and Esquire and GQ, and he would come down from Boston to play at Catch a Rising Star, which was across the street from my apartment, and we'd hang out. And then he moved to LA, and he called me up and he said, you know, you're never going to get rich working in magazines. It's great. It's glory. It's wonderful. But come out here. TV is booming. Stay with me a few weeks and see how it goes. And I did, and the rest is history. I came out, and a few weeks later I was working. So, yeah, he was
great story about Jay Leno. And, you know, he just seems like a cool guy still, like very unaffected. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine, you know, having just dealt with him occasionally here and there, but, you know, with enough frequency that you begin to get some sense of a guy. I just can't believe that you could keep up that act, if it's an act, for that long in that many different environments. So I give him a lot of credit for having achieved the sort of success and momentum in show business that really reached the pinnacle, as you say, reached the top with the Tonight Show and then everything else. I mean, huge club dates and all the rest. Anyway, my point is to be on that Mount Rushmore and not have more attitude. I mean, the guy just I give him a lot of credit for you know, being down to earth. Now, right. Okay. Now, you know, you work on a lot of stuff and you work on a lot of different things. I think that's one of the beauties of your career. You know, you've worked on television series. You've pitched and sold a lot of different series. Some of them have been with sort of more social import than others, probably, you would say. You know, sometimes some of the stuff is just cotton candy, and some of the stuff is really something to chew on where there's a real substance there. What are you up to now?
You know, that's the strange part of it. The cotton candy actually turns out to be the staple of your diet because it pays the bills.
Right.
Stuff of more social significance is the stuff that you thrill to and you enjoy and you shoot for, but nothing to depend on. Yeah, I'm working on something of hopefully true significance. A friend of mine had brought me a story about someone his dad played with. His dad played in the NBA for 1 year in the 1950s. And he starts telling me about a good friend of his, turned out to be the first black player drafted by the NBA in 1950, a guy named Chuck Cooper. And that immediately caught my attention. I had never heard of him. And it turns out a good number of the NBA players today never heard of him, or in the past. He only got enshrined in the Hall of Fame posthumously in the 80s. But when I learned his story, I started to write it up. We went and chased and got the rights to it, developed a bit of a story on him. And I thought maybe this is an hour documentary, and a light bulb went off in my head and thought, I think there's a 4-hour mini series or limited docu-series here. And it's turned out to be the story of the NBA from segregation to integration to global inclusion, because a league that went from 0 players of color to today is 73% minority majority of people from all over the world, China, Nigeria, Serbia, you name it, all colors, and coaches and scouts and front office as well as players. So this documentary through 4 hours is going to mirror the story of civil rights in America from 1950 onwards. So when we match up the story of the first 3 black players, we're matching up the story of Emmett Till and Brown versus Board of Education and all the various civil rights milestones. It seems to me, and we're dealing right now with the NBA Players Association because a number of the projects are all in the funding state at this point. They're finished. We needed a big name to help put it over the top. And I somehow thought of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, got it to his partner, Deborah Morales. They both liked it a lot and came on board as fellow executive producers with me, and will be writing and narrating as well. So
That's been terrific. As you're speaking, I'm thinking of Kareem. He's such he's a socially conscious guy, and everything you've just mentioned, I would think would really land nicely with him.
Yeah, it's when we first met, I won't say office. He's just, he's such an iconoclastic intellectual guy, really deep in thoughts. It's just not the kind of guy you banter with lightly. When we sat down talking, we dated ourselves back, and I said, listen, I'm not a typical fanboy kind of guy. I'm not even a major sports fan, but I've been a big fan of yours. And you're a number of years ahead of me, but I've been following you since I was a kid. It's not a great number of years between us. I said, when you were at Power Memorial High School in New York, I was growing up about an hour outside of the city. And I know you grew up in Harlem. That's where my folks met as social workers. So there was a little bit of rapport, and he started opening up, and he asked me where I was one certain summer early in both our educations. He had just basically finished school and was playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I said, I was in summer school at Harvard that year studying poetry with a poet named Robert Creeley. And I said, what were you doing? And he said, I was on the same campus studying Islamic poetry that summer. And I thought, I knew I was in with the right guy.
Wow. Yeah. He's a heady guy. So this is at the funding stage. And so from a time standpoint, give us all a sense of how long it takes to mount something like that.
Our budgets have now been prepared. They're under review by the NBA Players Association. If all continues to go smoothly, we're hoping to announce it in February, which is Black History Month, and launch into it from there, with Kareem's heavy involvement in it. He bought in. One thing that was really rewarding, you said, I constantly have to reinvent myself, because this is not the kind of work that you get a job and you hold on to it for 10, 15, 20 years and retire with a pension. So you always have to reinvent yourself. This has been a major reinvention at this point in my life, and it's particularly rewarding because it's got substance to it. It's basketball, but it's also history and sociology. The nation progressed in civil rights through fits and starts. We take 2 steps, until recently at least, we took 2 steps forward, maybe a step back. And the NBA was doing that just ahead of the country itself. So
yeah, it's funny as you speak. I remember that the NBA. I mean, I wasn't alive for it, but I certainly, you see it in all the pictures and and open discussions of it. It was just a bunch of white people, right? I mean, it's odd, that the racism was so pervasive, and even as there was integration. I mean, I'm sure there was still, racism one sort or another, but the idea of it paralleling what was going on in the culture at the time is a really innovative take, and the notion that it was actually a little bit of ahead of the culture, is an even more edifying take. So good for you. I wish you good luck on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask you about another project that I know you're working on, which is associated with war and the animals that are caught up in a lot of these armed conflicts worldwide.
Yeah, I'm on the board of an incredible organization called Paws of War. They're based out of eastern tip of Long Island, but they're a national organization. And they do a few things. One major thing they do is when a soldier serves overseas, maybe in the Afghanistan theater or in Iraq, some of our few soldiers in Syria, they may befriend an animal there, a dog, a cat, it doesn't matter what the breed is. And it's not so much, these are not military animals that have been trained to serve along with the troops. It's just an animal one of these troops befriends and gets very close to. Then when they get deployed back to the United States, the military does not bring these animals back, and they are subject almost always to inhumane treatment. First of all, these countries don't take great care, by and large, of their animals to begin with. They're not like America, where we bestow lots of largesse. Those who aren't abusing animals, if they love their animals, they're treating them part of the family. Not so there. So these animals are left behind, and the troops that come back are missing them tremendously. They're almost all are suffering from one degree or another of PTSD. This Paws of War does an amazing work in getting these animals together and flying them through all kinds of means. And God knows how they do it, because it's really difficult. They will gather dogs out of Syria and bring them to Amman, Jordan, and then have a charter flight into Kennedy Airport with dogs, and then disseminate them out to soldiers living in Kentucky or in Montana or in New Mexico, and they get them out there. Revolutionizes their life. It is so heartwarming to see that kind of reunification happening. They also get rescue animals and train them as service and support dogs for military vets. So they work with the vets, they work with the animals in matching up a dog. This is not a dog that maybe that they found in a theater of war, but one they're matched up with here. I can't think of a more worthy organization. They do tremendous work, and they save other animals and foster animals and adopt out animals on top of everything else. So I'm really happy to be on their board. And lately I have been writing up profiles of the people who have been benefiting, the soldiers that have been benefiting from having these animals back with them again. So it's really touching.
That's terrific work. Pawsofwar.org, P-A-W-S, pawsofwar.org. Yeah.
We've just started putting together, hopefully we'll be successful in mounting a hour or 90-minute documentary about
I would hope. You really want that word out. I'd love it. I really would love it. I'd love even a shorter form. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. Something that's happened to me since getting on YouTube. I realized the virtue in, the quick hit. If you can tell a story in 4 minutes on YouTube, that video may go more viral than a full documentary will, or as the perhaps the welcome mat to a longer form piece. So. Yeah. But telling the story one way or the other is important. Finally, I wanted to ask you about this project that has to do with food that you're working on, food and slavery.
Yeah, it's a very unusual combination. I got to meet a man who I knew was a doctor, but I was more familiar with him as watching his YouTubes as being a vegan chef. And I started to do some investigation into him. His name is Dr. Columbus Batiste. This is a man who grew up in Compton, whose his parents went to an historically black college, what they call it, HUAC or whatever it's called, Historically Black College University, right. Oakwood University in Alabama. Very educated. He went there as well. He tells me that his dad, as he was growing up, there were Seventh-day Adventists living in Compton, and you could not get fresh food, fresh vegetables, nutritious food in Compton. Called it a food desert, which has become a much more familiar terms today. So his dad, he's got early memories of his dad putting him on a bus. He and his dad would take the bus out of Compton to the next town. It might be Gardenia or Hawthorne, wherever they had a store that had healthy foods. So they'd actually have to get on a bus to get healthy foods and bring it back home. He grew up kind of knowing he wanted to be a doctor. his dad had diabetes, even though he was eating a Seventh-day Adventists are pretty much vegans all the way through. After he graduated from Oakwood University, he went to school in what's known as a blue zone. And the blue zone are certain areas all over the world where people live to be an extremely old age, 100, 105, 108, eating vegetables, fresh fruits, legumes, nuts, really healthy diet. I'm thinking, okay, God, the guy grew up in a food desert. He went to college in the blue zone. And then he mentions to me, I have something called the Slave Food Project. And I said, I don't know if it's my journalist's ear that's hearing you or my poet's ear that's hearing you, because if I link together food desert, blue zone, and slave food, I feel like I've got a poem in the making or something in the making here. And it turns out it was a magazine piece that I launched into because he's on staff at the University of California, Riverside Medical School. And is head of he's an interventional cardiologist at Kaiser in Riverside. Did a little more talking with him, and he said, I am sick of putting stents into people's arteries to save their lives. If they just ate a healthier diet, hopefully a vegan diet, but as close to a vegan diet as they might get. I might have saved my dad's life if he had listened a bit more to me, if I had been even maybe more forceful in my discussions with him about this. He pointed out that during COVID, there were so many people in communities of color that died because of the comorbidities in those communities, high blood pressure, diabetes, things that are almost all diet related. He said, if I can change that locus, if I can change the diet, I will change the morbidity rate of my people as I'm doing it. And I won't have to put in stents. I don't care if I put myself out of business. I am looking to make people healthier. So he has an organization. He has a lot of YouTube videos, and he goes around the country with, sometimes on Zoom, sometimes in personal appearances, with other Black doctors, nutritionists, dietitians, psychologists, activists, a movement that's national, which I think holds incredible promise. So while I did a magazine piece for University of California, Riverside on it, I am now writing about it for another website, which I'm new to, called sentientmedia.com. They do a lot of work about factory farming and getting rid of factory farming. When I pitched this to them, their eyes kind of lit up. They hadn't heard of them. They were interested, and it was a instant go. So I'm juggling all three of these things.
You're amazing. Yeah, this is three really worthy projects. The basketball project done now with Kareem, and the focus on the civil rights movement as reflected in changes within the NBA as it evolved, and then the pause of war. I mean, that's a terrific organization, and it's a charity that I'll contribute to as soon as we get done with this conversation. And this slave food project and profile, that's really deserving of some daylight, too. I'm so glad that you're going to get it out there to this other website. It's sentient, what is it, Sentient Media?
Media.org.
Sentientmedia.org. Yeah, there it is on the screen.
And when I speak about reinvention, all of these things are really reinventions for me, because I was never into sports, but I was definitely into being an activist in civil rights and in sociological causes like that. So that was my attraction there. I really couldn't put a basket through a basketball hoop if I had, 3 ladders. The same thing in a sense with slave food, because I had not been a vegan myself until about 4 or 5 years now, when I'd been a pescatarian, but having COVID pushed me into becoming a vegan, because I live with people who are fanatical vegans. I did all the shopping and cooking, and when I got really sick, I couldn't do it. They fed me. And when I went to see the doctor afterwards, he said, something you've been doing very different in the past couple of months now that you're getting better. What is it? And I said, well, I have been eating a pure vegan diet. And he said, well, that's why your cholesterol is cut down by a third and all of your other numbers are doing better. And I said, how can you be so sure? And he said, I'm a vegan oncologist, he says, and what I'm talking about. So I couldn't argue with that. So I reinvented myself, and that's come along. The only thing I have had all my life are dogs. That it's with the military, it's also a reinvention because when the draft came up, I signed up as a conscientious objector originally. So,
Sure.
you know, you change. You go through enough years in life, things come full circle. But
That's just, you've just seen so much and been part of so much. Just in the time that I've known you, I've heard so many great stories and associations, and I've learned so much about all of these nooks and crannies of the world. And I think that that's one of the great things about journalism and even media, that you're able to, you know, point a light, as I say, about at some of these things and some of these great efforts that are underway and have been underway for some time that, you know, we're just not aware of. So I can't wait to see all of this stuff, you know, blossom to the next stage and so on. Please come back and visit. I love that that you visited now, and I'm looking forward to. And I've left out of this conversation some pretty sexy stuff that you've done in the past too. So I will look forward to integrating some of those stories for our next conversation. All right, Robin?
terrific. Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay, my friend. Robin Keats, everybody. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? Yeah, you know, just having a swinging holiday season, aren't we? Whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning, hope it's going well, and I hope it continues to go well. We've got a big year planned for you on this show. Oh, yeah. Next year is going to be even bigger and better because of you. And let's get into the spirit of the holiday season. I mean, it's about humanity. When has humanity ever let us down? Oh, wait. That's all humanity does, is let us down, come to think of it. Hey, let's not focus on humanity maybe this time. Look, we've got each other, right? Happy holidays from all of us. And Happy New Year.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Know what you call me?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
A Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, no, no.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret now?
Does an itty bitty bit of weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Yeah, and we are back. I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. And let's do a little bit of news. I just got an email from David Katz. He says he's running a little bit behind, so we'll do some news, stories from the sky, and then we'll visit with David Katz and Belinda Waymouth. But first, the news. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. The Colorado State Supreme Court's ruling to ban former President Trump from the state's 2024 primary ballot getting a little pushback now from the Colorado Republican Party. The chairman of the Colorado GOP says he wants to use the caucus system if he has to. It can be a little complicated for voters, but he believes it's the best way to make sure that voters can get their voices heard. A Republican senator says the White House nominee for labor secretary lacks the needed votes for confirmation. Julie Su became acting labor secretary after Marty Walsh resigned earlier this year to run the NHL Players Association. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana said Su fails to show her ability to impartially enforce the law, properly manage a department, and refrain from partisan activism. Southern California and Arizona expected to see heavy rain through the end of the week. Forecasters say the storm could pour out a month's worth of rain over the next few days, leading to, major travel problems during this big travel week. Flooding also and debris flow. Some parts of Southern California's coast might catch even more rain than what Hillary delivered in August. Water from flushed toilets and shower drains in California returning to your kitchen faucet. The notion of recycled wastewater strays from the image of crystal clear mountain spring water, but California's new rules approved Tuesday will let us reuse the water, and it will begin. Recycled wastewater, not new to California. It's been used to make ice in skating rinks, to make snow at ski resorts, and it goes into farmers' pipes for crop irrigation as well. Officials say the treatment process is so stringent that in addition to removing pathogens and viruses, it also removes all of the minerals that make fresh drinking water taste good. Water agencies must advise customers about the recycled water before they start doing it. It's a new California law that goes into effect on the first of the year, and it requires law enforcement officers to provide a reason for a traffic stop before they question the driver. Assemblymember Chris Holden wrote this law. The Pasadena Democrat says the measure was needed to reduce what he called pretextual stops. That's when a police officer pulls a vehicle over for a minor infraction in order to investigate a possible larger crime. Pretextual stops have been deemed constitutional, but according to a study out of Stanford University, Black drivers are more than 1.5 more times more likely to be searched than white drivers. Last year, the Los Angeles Police Department instituted its own rule requiring officers to turn on their body cameras and record traffic stops and their reasons for making them as well. In San Mateo, police are using eyes in the sky to solve crime. They say a drone with a surveillance camera tracked down 3 men trying to hide after 2 home break-ins. One suspect was in a portable bathroom, another on top of a roof, a third arrested running out of a backyard. All 3 are accused of stealing more than $50,000 worth of items in the area of Mission Drive and West Capistrano Way in San Mateo. A Los Altos middle school is again dealing with hate on campus. Swastikas drawn on 5 lockers last Friday at the Black Intermediate School, and even more appeared on Monday. The district thinks it's likely from the same student and says it follows an anti-Semitic remark made recently to 2 girls. All 7th and 8th grade students in that district will now take part in training sessions from the Anti-Defamation League. That's going to happen in February. Well, it's the season for movies, and California's Christmas movies, I should say. Californians seem to have a favorite. The Nightmare Before Christmas is the most searched in the state of California as far as Christmas movies go. Researchers with a CenturyLink quota gathered a list of 50 favorites to find the top 17 with the highest search volume this year. And Tim Burton's animated musical comes in second place nationwide, tied with 4 Christmases and Love Actually. The first place goes to Elf in 7 states. Elf. I love Elf. I'm telling you. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore, where Santa has been spending the weekends, allowing folks to take pictures with him right in the winery tasting room. I'm not sure if they're doing it again this weekend, but call ahead and check it out if you're going to go out to Tenuta Vineyards. You can reach Rich out at Tenuta, and he'll know if Santa's going to be there. 925-699-4576, the number. You also, by the way, can call and get your 10% off. All you have to say is smash it with your iron rod, and you get your Mark Thompson Show 10% off of anything you buy.
Your iron rod.
Gotta say it just like that too, and you get your 10% off, and you still have time to get your wines delivered for the New Year's holiday. So again, 925-699-4576, and thank you for supporting our friends out at Tenuta Vineyards. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
All right, Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson, and David Katz is going to be just a touch late. We won't have as much time with him as normal today, but we'll do a Stories from the Sky, and he'll be in at about 12:20, and then we'll have a few minutes to throw some things past him here on the Mark Thompson Show. So let's get right to it. Let's head our way into the skies with a Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
This first story is, I think, a little heartwarming. It has a great picture. There is a Southern California-based pilot who has a moving pre-flight speech that he made honoring his parents, because for the first time, they were on a flight that he was operating. This video went viral on TikTok. United Airlines pilot Jason Schussler was seen welcoming passengers on the flight from Los Angeles to Denver. This happened last month, and then he went on to announce, "Today will be the most memorable flight of my career." He said his parents, the two most important, supportive, and loving people in his life, were on the flight. Yeah, let's check it out, Albert.
Welcome aboard Flight 1339 with service to Denver, Colorado. I am First Officer Jason. I will be flying you over to Denver today with Captain Tommy assisting me. We have four incredible...
I don't know what's up with the video, but yeah, the audio is good enough.
Incredible flight attendants in the back. They are here primarily for your safety. If you would, please give them your undivided attention for the safety briefing prior to departure. En route time today to Denver, 1 hour and 52 minutes takeoff to touchdown. We are anticipating a pretty smooth flight on the way over there, with the exception of the last 15 to 20 minutes might get just a little bit bumpy, but it shouldn't be too terrible. We'll be cruising along today at 31,000 feet. We appreciate you being here this morning, bright and early. That being said, if I can have your attention for just another minute or two, folks, today will be the most memorable flight of my career. You see the two most important, supportive and loving people in my life over the last 38 years, my parents, are on a flight that I am operating for the very first time. They finally get to see firsthand the product of all their hard work and dedication. Thank you. Hard work and dedication over the years. Since I was 4 years old, I had the dream of being a pilot. And today they get to see me welcoming all of you onto my airplane as your pilot here today at United Airlines. So I want to publicly acknowledge all of the hard work and especially the sacrifices that my mom and dad have made over the years. And to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being the very best parents a guy could ever hope for. I think I made you proud. So ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you this will be the safest flight you have ever been on. Not only because my parents are on this flight, but I can assure you that when we land in Denver, Mom's feet will be pressed firmly on the floor, hitting those backseat driver brakes, ensuring this plane safely comes to a stop. Mom and Dad, I love you. Thank you for a great week visiting me here in LA. Now I'll let you sit back, relax, and enjoy your 1 hour and 52-minute flight to the Mile High City. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the sweetest thing. If I am his mom, I am just sitting in the seat crying my eyes out. That is the nicest thing. I'm already crying. I was not even on the flight. That's so great. I love it. Okay, I wanted to do some more stories from the Sky Stories, and we might do those a little bit later. But I have David Katz, who is waiting in the wings, who has popped on with us. So there's so many stories that we need to get through that are really important to cover. So let's wrap up stories from the sky for now, Albert, if we can, and then bring on David Katz. How's that?
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
Oh, that one got me all emotional. Okay, without further ado, it is former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney, friend of the Mark Thompson show, David Katz, everybody. Yay for David Katz. Hello.
Great to be with you, Kim.
Hi. I wish I could use the Katz, everybody wants to be a cat music, but we'll get copyright struck, and then I'll have to hire you as an attorney, and the whole thing is just going to go straight downhill, so can't do it. But I'm so thankful to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm fine. It's great to be with you. We had our great panel the other night with Mark from off the coast of South America, and you and David K. Johnston, and your other guests too. All five of us
that was
talking
great.
about the Colorado Supreme Court decision regarding barring Trump from being on the ballot in Colorado. Different and interesting points of view as that case moves forward. So, what's our topic today?
Let's start with what you just mentioned, which is the Colorado Supreme Court. Justices involved in that decision are now facing a flood of threats after they disqualified Trump from the ballot. We're talking death threats. There was one about "I'll kill your baby." I mean, horrible things are coming in, and someone, or more than one person, posted personal information of these justices, including their email addresses, the business addresses, the addresses of their offices, and the violent comments and threats being made are very, very concerning. So I don't know if this is the new normal for justices, and even the woman who was a Colorado official who brought the complaint to the court says she's also having death threats against her. So I wonder if this is our new normal. Like, we just know that it's par for the course. If you bring one of these cases, you're going to be threatened and possibly have your life in peril.
Well, I hope it's not the new normal. And it's worth bearing in mind that these court staffs, maybe not so much some of the prosecutors, maybe not so much some other people in the system, but the judges themselves have tremendous protection, both in their chambers. They have security details. People are aware of this. If there's any ambiguity in the law or lack of funding, I'm sure that the Colorado legislature will make sure that there's proper funding to really not only protect the justices, but their staffs, members of their family. You can't have a government of intimidation. We can't have the sort of impunity or immunity that they have down in Mexico or in Latin American countries and some other countries that you hear about. And so these people who do their duty and stand up and do the right thing should absolutely be protected. And people who make actual threats, I don't mean to sound like a former assistant U.S. attorney and this is by the book, but absolutely. And this has, and the agents and so forth, the people who actually they're sworn officers, so they have guns. People say, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," when the IRS or the FBI special agents come to these houses and businesses, even on a white collar case. How come they're armed? Well, they're armed because there are some people, a tiny fraction, that are willing to resort to violence, and you cannot have hecklers' rights. You can't have threateners' rights. And the people who make actual threats have to be dealt with very seriously. It's a funny thing. People looking back on Trump, when Trump was the president, he had the Secret Service. Believe me, they're hyperactive. You make a threat against Donald Trump when he was president of the United States, believe me, you got a full-on criminal investigation. And that has to be the same, obviously not go overboard. Not if you have to get a search warrant, you have to get a search warrant, not harass people. But like you say, someone who says something, I'm going to kill you and your baby, they have to figure out, you get a subpoena. These are not anonymous records. You get a subpoena for whatever media company they use to send out that message. You demand to know who's the subscriber on that account. You find out, you get to the bottom of this. I mean, believe me, they do this with some child pornography cases, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but if it's worth, investigating that, it's worth investigating threats on justices, Kim. It's worth investigating that kind of thing. And as to the Colorado justices, those are the ones that you're talking about.
Yeah.
They said in their opinion, this is an historic case. They had to do their duty. And I think all of them did their duty. The people who say it's all political, I mentioned this on the show the other night, 7 justices, all appointed by Democrats. And guess what? 3 of them thought there were legal issues in the case, and they voted in a way that pleased Trump. And 4 of them thought that there were legal issues in the case, which were such that they voted in a way that displeased Trump. So I think that democracy acquitted itself very well. The rule of law acquitted itself very well. And my understanding is that if the Supreme Court doesn't take the case, if the Supreme Court does not, the U.S. Supreme Court does not grant a stay, then this on January 4 or 5 will go into effect. In other words, everyone's expecting the Supreme Court to either stay it, reverse it. But if the Supreme Court truly takes hands off, I think the Colorado Supreme Court is going to say, well, here's January 4th. The U.S. Supreme Court hasn't done anything to act on staying or reversing this case. Right. And I think at that point, they'll tell the Colorado Secretary of State, print the ballot on January 5th with Trump's name off the Republican primary. That's what I think is going to happen. But again, if you're betting, I suspect they will intervene or stay in some way the U.S. Supreme Court. And it will, I said the other night that it will embolden the other states. Yeah. It turns out that there are 15 or 16 other states where litigation like that is pending. The New York Times has a chart of it. And some of those are swing states. As I recall the chart, Arizona, some other states that are in play, are still having judges there decide what they want to do with taking Trump's name off the ballot in those states. And the idea that it's so outrageous that such a case of first impression, you made this point. You read the Constitution and it says someone who was an insurrectionist. Now people say it only refers to the Civil War. And what's so funny is that the textualists, the originalists, the ones who say that you can't ban guns in domestic violence situations because, well, historically, originally, the Constitution wasn't that focused on domestic violence, because think of the era that we lived in then, the relationship between men and women. I think women were still considered property, right, of men. So to say, well, because the framers lived in that kind of a world, the Second Amendment bars doing anything about these domestic violence injunctions, I think the Supreme Court will rule the other way. But the people who say they're textualists, they're originalists, I mean, read the 14th Amendment. It's
right there.
On its face.
It's just black and white, right?
Read the text. Yeah. Read what it originally says. It bars an insurrectionist. And Mark made the point that, yes, it could be abused. But I think the answer to that would be, you would look at due process. You have a right not to be put in jail. You have a right not to be barred from running for president under the due process clause. So some of the Texas just says, well, we don't like Biden, we're going to throw him off the ballot. That's obviously not due process. And if the trial were defective, if Biden weren't allowed to put on evidence that he was not an insurrectionist, that there'd never been any insurrection, Biden had nothing to do with encouraging people to raid the Capitol or do anything that was an insurrection, then of course that would fall, not because the Fourth Amendment is ambiguous or didn't call it out, but because you also have due process, and you can't be denied due process in any kind of legal proceeding. And that Texas, rushed to judgment to just throw Biden off the ballots because he was supposedly part of a non-existent insurrection, that would be thrown out, not in the language of the 14th Amendment, under due process, because Biden wouldn't have been given due process. Trump was given due process. He had a trial. He had a lot of witnesses. The judge made findings in the trial court, and those were affirmed by the Colorado Supreme Court, with a twist that they said that Trump was an officer. And I think it's obvious that the president occupies an office that makes him an officer of the United States. I thought that was a cop-out by the trial judge, and pretty plain and simple by the Colorado Supreme Court. So we'll see.
What's interesting is, and you talk about other states being able to do this, and there's word today, first of all, that California is now in a move trying to keep Trump off of our primary ballot. The attorney general, state lawmakers are calling on the attorney general to push for a court ruling on this. And Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis is turning to the Secretary of State to explore legal options. But I will say that in addition to that, and it kind of goes along with what you were just mentioning, is that there's a state senator who's introducing a bill next year that would let the California Secretary of State determine if presidential candidates are eligible or not. So the effort is basically to pick a person who decides who can appear on California's election ballots or not. That wouldn't be due process.
Yes, I think that this is getting very fraught and problematic. I see all of Mark's arguments, and all I can say is that the Colorado Supreme Court, I think, was on firm ground in this very unique case and the very unusual circumstance where Trump engaged and participated actively. We all saw it in an insurrection, which was a classic insurrection. It was an invasion of the Capitol to stop the transfer of power, to stop the proper certification of the vote. All the hypotheticals of, well, wasn't Black Lives Matter a demonstration, an insurrection? Wasn't the thing in Portland, Oregon? No, they weren't. They were absolutely not the insurrection. So I think for the U.S. Supreme Court to say, well, this was not an insurrection, I don't think they're going to go there. But we'll have to see what happens with that one. I thought we were going to talk a little bit about San Francisco's.
Let's talk about that too. Well, first of all, let's talk about this federal judge blocking this California law that would have banned carrying firearms in most public places. This is a temporary blocking of this California law because they say it violates the Second Amendment of the Constitution and deprives people of their ability to defend themselves and their loved ones. This law was supposed to take effect January 1st. It was signed by the governor, it's ready to go. It would have banned people from carrying concealed guns in 26 places, including public parks, playgrounds, churches, banks, and zoos, and it would apply whether a person has a permit to carry a concealed weapon or not. So I guess that's banned. That's against the rules.
Well, there's some litigation over guns, which seems to always get low numbered or sent as a related case to a particular Second Amendment zealot on the federal bench. If this was one of the cases that got related and sent to that Second Amendment zealot, I think probably the decision will not stand.
It was U.S. District Judge Cormac Carney.
Well, he's not, though. He's not the one that I was thinking of. We're going to have to see what the U.S. Supreme Court does with these gun cases. The pistol case from New York City was very troubling, but I thought the U.S. Supreme Court made clear that there could be limits on people going into bars with guns, going into Yankee Stadium with guns, going on the subways. And so by that analogy, I think that these public safety measures are still going to be good. I don't agree with this jurisprudence over the right to keep and bear arms, but even taking it for what I think the U.S. Supreme Court will do with it, I think that they will allow restrictions that enhance public safety, especially in very crowded places, in potentially violence-prone places like bars, amusement parks, anywhere where people are drinking, baseball stadiums. So, but I want to talk about the San Francisco federal judge, William Alsop, if you don't mind, because I know him.
Okay, so he rejected some plea deals for drug dealers in the Tenderloin, saying the plea deals are way too lenient.
Well, the first story I want to tell, because I think it's always, if it makes it human when the guest can say something about the human being that's involved in the big news story.
Right.
I had the privilege to work in the Solicitor General's office in Washington, D.C. as a summer clerk. And it attracted some of the most brilliant people in government as permanent employees. I was a summer clerk there, but I got to meet so many of these brilliant people. And you may say this is male privilege or good athlete privileges, but I was always a very good softball player. So when they saw how good the summer clerk was on the softball team, I got to know everybody, including I got to know William Alsop, who drove me home one night from the softball game to where I was living. And I got to chat with him, for 20 minutes in the car. The most charming, charismatic, person. I'm so happy for him that he made it to the federal bench. He was really one of those people I've met in my career, like Adam Schiff, who I said, this is somebody who deserves the position that they hold, the accolades that they've received. I know some people don't give Adam Schiff accolades, but I think that he's very worthy of him. And he's another person I know much better than William Alsup. Anyway, Alsup went on to be a U.S. district judge. His heart is absolutely in the right place. And, this is a very interesting situation because a lot of people who sell fentanyl, as deadly as it is, in street sales, who may be addicts themselves, don't get prosecuted at all in federal court. And so they set up these federal task forces. And the idea is that the feds should get together with the local and state officials and do something about it. Then, of course, they're entitled to vigorous defense. They're entitled to have a very good federal public defender or private attorney if they can somehow afford one. And that person wants the very best for their client. So they say, it's so unusual that my client's even being charged in federal court. He's not a big time drug dealer. Yes, he's selling fentanyl. That's terrible. But he's selling it basically to feed his own habit, or it's very low level. And so I won't agree to any big sentence. I'll agree to my guy will get probation and he'll have a federal conviction. He's being treated so much worse than other people. He's ending up with a federal conviction. But I'll only agree to the plea agreement if he gets no time, has to be approved by the federal judge. That was one of the problems that Hunter Biden's having when he says, I thought I had this deal, I thought I had that deal. The deals have to be approved by the federal judge, almost always in federal court. And so these deals had to be approved by the federal judge, and it lands in front of Alsup. You're going to end up with a conviction. You're not going to get diversion. You're not going to get a program like you would have in state court. You're going to have a serious criminal federal record for the rest of your life, okay? But you're not going to get jail time. Alsup looked at it. He thought the younger person ought to get 4 months in prison, and he thought the older person ought to get over a year in prison, but he didn't think that either of them should get no time, and he said so, and he rejected the plea agreements, which means that what's going to happen now is the government may drop the cases altogether. They may say for the amount of work that the prosecution has to do in a federal case, right? The motions that a criminal defense attorney could bring in federal court, you know what? We have other things. We have these huge computer frauds. We have big time drug dealers. We, the federal prosecutors, want to do other things with our resources. So we may drop the whole case. And that's what's so problematic here. You have to realize the alternative for some of these people, even these low-level fentanyl dealers, is not, well, they'll be prosecuted and imprisoned in state court. The reality is the law has been changed to the point, and I think that the attitude of the judges and the system in the state court in San Francisco is that you do get diversion. It's not like you go to prison over there, and so the judge is saying you should go to prison here. At the same time, he says, my God, I think this is sort of his thinking. His thinking is, if these people go back to Honduras, where apparently a lot of them are from, and they tell all their friends, if you think you need to be scared about federal prosecution so you'll be deterred, let me tell you, I got to stick my head in the lion's mouth, and the lion didn't really bite. Yeah. I got a federal case. I know what it's like to pick up a federal case, and guess what? I got no time. And I think Judge Alsup was really worried that if that story goes back to Honduras, people will be not deterred at all from coming up to San Francisco and selling drugs. And the impact of fentanyl has been awful. Over 800 people have died this year in San Francisco alone, not the Bay Area, in San Francisco alone. Think about that number of people, more than half of them from fentanyl. So I think Judge Alsup and some other judges on the court, they just wish that more were being done. They just wish that these people, but at the same time, there are limited federal resources, and the federal prosecutors, and I was one, and I was the head of one of these task forces, and we were going after not fentanyl, we were going after investment fraud, that kind of thing. If I can mention one more name, my successor was Ali Mayorkas, who went on to be the head of DHS and gets screamed at by the Republicans in Congress all the time. But when you run one of those task forces, you want to bring the best that can be brought. So the idea was that if we found this huge investment fraud, we, the feds, would prosecute the leaders of it. But the guys who were just selling on the phone that had been around from one boiler room or investment scam to another, maybe they'd been barred by the state prosecution. So the state prosecutors could do something about them violating their injunctions. Meanwhile, some of the people had warrants. So the local cops would show up and say, hey, buddy, guess what? We got a warrant for your arrest. So we're taking you out in handcuffs from the a boiler room right now. The idea is that we would all work together. And I guess the idea is to bring this fear of federal prosecution, which is a strong deterrent. And then Judge Alsop says, this is not working. We're sending the wrong message when these people, I assume that somehow they didn't get bail. I mean, you'd think the person would have not gotten bail and already served 4 months. So that wasn't reported very well. But I think Judge Alsop thought that this sends a message. If you don't get any federal prison sentence and you go back to Honduras, this sends the absolute worst message to the people that the cartel would recruit to go up to San Francisco, sell fentanyl, and even if you pick up a federal case, you won't get time.
Does it also send a message to the prosecutor in the case saying that, listen, you might decide not to move forward with these cases, but the next time you make a plea deal and you bring it in front of me, it better not be one of these too lenient, get off scot-free kind of cases, or we're going to be in the same boat again. So now maybe it tells the prosecutor they have to do a little bit more.
Well, the prosecutor is going to say to the federal public defender or whoever the attorney is for one of these folks, one of these defendants, say, look, I know you want no jail time, but it's got to be a year. It's got to be a year. By the way, these people are facing a 20-year maximum, I think, or at least a 10-year maximum. So if, maybe it emboldens, it strengthens the hand of the prosecutor to say to the criminal defense attorney, hey, look, a year's not going to work. The judge won't accept it at all. But you also worry because of the real situation that's going on, Kim, that some of the federal prosecutors will just say, look, there's so many resources. When I represent somebody, I look for every motion that is, legitimately one that can be brought. I look at the discovery to see what kind of problems there are in them not turning over the discovery. And if somebody is really painstaking and scrutinizes one of these cases, they may feel like you can make a lot of work for the prosecutor. So if they can fast track these cases, if there's not a lot of work, if it's like sign on the dotted line, you could be getting 10 or 20 years, you're getting a very low sentence, you're getting a federal conviction, sign on the dotted line. I think, yes, they'll say to them, sign on the dotted line for a year. If you can't sign on the dotted line for no time because you see the judges, even the liberal judges here, the compassionate judges won't accept it. And as a former federal prosecutor, I, of course, buy into this whole thing that it is compassionate to properly enforce the criminal laws, because you have to always think of the victims and society, not just the individual defendant who may have a hard luck story or his or her family may have a hard luck story, but look at the people who are impacted by crime, whether it's investment frauds or whether it's fentanyl.
Yeah, agree. David Katz, thank you for being on the Mark Thompson Show. You're so awesome.
You're so awesome. It's great to be with you, Kim. I'm glad I could make it today. We have huge rain down here, and I barely made it, but I did. Great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you, David Katz. See you next time. Bye-bye. All right, we'll go right to It's the Planet Stupid with Belinda Katz waiting in, or Belinda Katz. I just married you two. Belinda Waymouth waiting in the wings. Here we go.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid. No, it's the planet Stupid.
Always important to talk about the environment. So I welcome Belinda Waymouth to the Mark Thompson Show. Hi, Belinda.
Good morning.
Yay.
Good morning, and thanks for the quick marriage that I just had.
You're welcome.
I mean, it just lasted a couple of seconds.
Just partnering you up as we move along. I was excited to see that you plan to talk about the things that we have done right in 2023 for the planet, the best things that happened ecologically. So I don't know how long the list is. I'm hoping it's not a big shorty,
Yeah. No, there's quite a lot on it. Do you want to talk about the volcano in Iceland and how it's not going to be nearly as terrible as what happened in 2010 and why?
Yeah, let's start there. This is the volcano that erupted near Reykjavik, and they knew it was coming, so they evacuated this town and this very popular tourist area, and a couple of days ago it did erupt. And so I wonder if there's anything climate change related about this, or if it's going to do some ecological damage, or if you had any thoughts on what happened there.
Well, here's the thing, the Earth in, magma, which is, the core of the Earth, that's molten rock. And I don't think us heating up the surface of the planet is doing anything to what's going on inside. It's already busy enough with, without us adding greenhouse gases. But here's the thing about this one. There are 5 tracks of lava that are, making their way, downhill. And obviously you don't want to get anywhere near that, but it's winter. You can see it's super freezing, and lava will stop moving once it cools. Mm-hmm. And what happened in 2010, I don't know if people remember, but, international air travel was absolutely disrupted. There was another enormous volcanic eruption in Iceland. But what happened with that one, which was wild, was that volcano was underneath a glacier. And so what happened was, when it exploded, there's all this, molten rock, the magma, and then it interacted with the melted water from the glacier. And you know how if you put, if you've got a pan with oil and it's really hot and a few drops of water get in there, they hiss and it kind of goes a little crazy. So, yes. So what happened with this was, it was like that, but on this huge, huge level. I mean, It just caused this massive explosion. There was all this ash created, and then all these little glassy particles. And because of where that volcano was, the debris went straight up into the atmosphere, got caught in the jet stream, and then spread around Europe. And they were like, oh, what's this going to do if it gets in the jet engine of a plane? This could be bad. We better, ground all air travel, which they did. But this is not going to happen this time. There could be some interruptions, but they're not anticipating it being, nearly as bad. And no, we didn't cause it, Kim.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So let's move forward to the things we have done right in 2023.
Yeah, it's a really interesting moment. I keep on talking about how pivotal it is, and this is definitely coming in from the the optimist angle, which is my favorite one. But what we're really seeing is that the energy sector, electricity, is weaning itself off fossil fuels. This is happening, and some researchers are actually likening it to the iPhone, kind of moment, that there's going to be this massive adoption. I'm always talking about how the costs of renewables are coming down. So solar costs in the past decade down 90%, wind costs in the past decade down 70%. And right now in the US, solar, wind, and battery storage are accounting for 14% of our energy production and 12% worldwide. And that's not insignificant. I mean, obviously, we want it to be happening faster. But the fact is that, Biden's Inflation Reduction Act has really had an impact. Solar installation is predicted to grow by 53% on what we installed this year. There'll be 53% on top of that next year.
Sure.
Which is really great. And what's happening with the adoption of electric vehicles and all this new solar and heat pumps, all this technology, and the fact that their benefits are, we can see them. This is empowering politicians to get behind their adaptation. And the IRA, interestingly, when it first came out, they did polls, how aware were people of it? Did they really think it was benefiting them? Well, those numbers are really increasing, and they're not sure if it's, better political messaging, if it's, word of mouth, if the media is doing a better job. But whatever's happening, people are really seeing that the IRA is having an effect. It's having an effect for them. EV sales are going up. They're predicted to, to account for 9% of all new passenger car sales next year.
Sure.
So all that stuff is, moving us in the right direction. And this one, I think, is really, thank goodness we got Da Silva in Brazil. Amazon deforestation is down 50% this year compared to last year. And that is huge. And Da Silva, wants it to go to zero deforestation by 2030. Some of the other South American, Amazon bordering countries, they don't want it to happen that fast. But the fact is that De Silva, and Brazil, where the majority of the Amazon are, it is saying, we have to do this. So those things are really positive. And then the protection of biodiversity, which has really been growing, and at the UN level, which is really big, they have this, it's called the Coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And it's sort of at a policy level, and along with other, agreements that are also at the international level and have, were agreed on at COP28. They're really well formulated. All these countries are saying, yes, we know we need to protect biodiversity. It's super important. It's also really important because of, the carbon sequestration that healthy ecosystems, afford us. And we also, in August, had 70 countries signing on to a high seas treaty that's to protect vital marine ecosystems in international waters. So there is this movement, in the right direction, which I think is, super, super important. And then we have what's happening on a political and then sort of legal basis. So the EU had this landmark carbon border adjustment mechanism, which became law in October, saying that EU corporations have to pay if they are importing carbon polluting products into the union. And this is seen as probably being the single most potential, or having the greatest potential legislative potential to put a global price on carbon. If you have the whole of the EU and all those corporations, if they're importing products, that they have to pay, basically, if it's known that those are, carbon polluting items. So that's big. And then we have all the litigation that's been happening, against fossil fuel companies and governments. They are being sued around the world. A Belgium court has ordered the Belgium government they have to cut their emissions more quickly. And remember, here in Montana, we had the judge ruling in favor of the youth group who said,
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was amazing. So the fact that we've got judges in the US also getting on board with this and saying, yes, these young people have a right to a clean environment. That's part of their state's constitutional rights. Yep. We've got California suing the 5 major fossil fuel companies because of climate change disinformation. So all these things, sort of move us, in the right direction. And optimists are really sort of seeing this, is that, a decade ago, the worst case scenario, we were looking at 4 to 5 degrees Celsius of, climate change. The temperature would go up 4 to 5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, which, that's really catastrophic. Now, we're still, in a danger zone, and it still could go up 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius. But if we can keep the positive momentum going and keep pushing, and if we could, and it will take a Herculean, sort of effort on everyone's behalf, scientists, policymakers, activists. But if we really could manage to keep it to 2, I mean, we've already seen this year with, what happened in Canada, the heat waves in China, Canada, the fires, the floods that we've had worldwide. We can see where we're at with 1.5. So what everyone is really pushing for now is, can we do this, keep it at 2? which would be really huge.
Well, after the whole COP28 thing, which really seemed like a bit of a farce, it's nice to see that there's actual things actually happening. I want to talk to you about the California plan to take toilet water and sanitize it and then put it back through the tap. But before I do, I think Randy has a really good question for you. He wants me to ask you about California deciding to keep the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant open through 2030.
And what I think about that?
Yes, your thoughts on this, because I know it could be it's environmentalists are not for it normally, is what I understand.
Yeah, well, we've talked quite a bit about nuclear, and I mean, it's definitely problematic. I mean, we know that nuclear waste is super problematic, but there's also being pragmatic. And if, nuclear power plants can help us, make that bridge to, renewables, then, I think if you make really sort of judicious decisions about which ones you keep open and which ones you don't. I mean, there are a lot of people who argue that we can't do it without nuclear power. I think, the scientists who I agree with say that we can. Yeah. But if we're using something that's not putting greenhouse gas emissions up into the atmosphere for, till 2030, and this is really crunch time, I suppose I'd have to say, yes, we should do it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this toilet to tap situation, because I'm kind of ooged out by the whole thing.
I know. It's such a hard one. Especially when the toilet to tap. I mean, what they call it is, it's called direct potable reuse. And maybe that's a little more palatable. But here's the thing about water, and particularly here in California, we've just been through this 3-year extreme drought situation. Water is so important here, and it just feels so precarious a lot of the times, water. So the fact is wastewater is a drought-resistant water source. And that's sort of how you have to look at it. There's always going to be wastewater. And the fact is, Kim, we already use it. They clean it to such an unbelievable degree. They take out every single pathogen. It's a 3-step, reverse osmosis, microfiltration, ultraviolet light. I mean, down in Orange County, they're taking wastewater. They're cleaning it to this level. I mean, they take out so many pathogens. And in fact, the minerals that make it taste good, they have to put them back in afterwards after they've done this ultra cleaning. But in the OC, to make it palatable, this potable water, to make it palatable for people, they're pumping it back into aquifers, leaving it there for several months, and then repumping it back out, re-putting it through a water treatment plant, and then putting it in your taps. So the fact is, it's already happening, and we have to use it. I mean, they're using it to make ice for ice rinks. They're using it to make snow in Tahoe. They're using it in the Central Valley to irrigate crops. And so what's happened in California, the newest rules, they're not saying, hey, all wastewater, companies have to do this. They're saying that you can treat wastewater and put it right back into the drinking water system. And here's the thing about it, and hopefully this will set your, the ick factor, hopefully this will quell this for you.
Like, I know they're going to sanitize it. I get that it's scientifically necessary and that they have ways of making it so it's really clean, but I just can't quite wrap my head around what I'm seeing go down the sink is going to be completely and totally filled. I guess I have a trust issue.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Look, if you live downriver of another city, you're already getting recycled wastewater. That's already being put back into the water system, upriver of you. So, and it's already happening, around the world, because, the 71% of the planet is covered with water. Well, as we know, most of that is salt water. Only 3% is fresh water, and only 1% of that is readily available to us. Most of the water is down in aquifers, and we have been over utilizing aquifers to the point where in California, I mean, the soil subsidence in places where they've really taken out the groundwater is crazy, 70 feet, in some places. And to talk about just how stringent the treatment is. It's taken 10 years to develop these rules. They at the meeting they had, which was on Tuesday, it came in just days before the December 31st deadline that they had. And like I said, it's so stringent that it removes even the minerals that make the water taste good. And so those have to be re-added afterwards. I mean, it's more stringent than what your drinking water that's coming out of your faucet is going through right now. The pathogens that they are going through, going for and filtering out. And I think what they're going to have to do is really, they're going to have to really educate the public and sort of show them what's happening. And there is a little video, I sent a link of it where they show you, I mean, this water really goes through the ringer part in the pump, but before you get it back. And we're just the second state. Colorado already does this, and as you know, I mean, we're always talking about the Colorado River and the fact that it's it's just maxed out. There's not enough water. There's no water in it by the time it gets to Mexico. So we have to get smart about every water source, and like I said, it's a drought resistant form of source of water.
Belinda, the environment's so important, and you've played such a big role in bringing this information to the listeners on the Mark Thompson Show, back at KGO and here on the Mark Thompson Show on YouTube and podcast as well. I can't thank you enough for all you've done.
Oh, well, it's totally my pleasure. As you know, I am very passionate about the planet.
Yes, you are.
When that little bit comes out, I'm like,
well done. Well, I hope you have a really happy holiday. Any big plans?
Our daughter is home from university, so that's sort of our big plan, is hanging out with her. And yes, and then really enjoying talking of rain, that we're getting this fantastic rain right now.
Absolutely.
So making the most of that. Are you getting rain up there?
Yeah. Oh, it's been pelting us in Northern California as well. So
yeah, it's crazy. Well, listen, happy holidays, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of the Mark Thompson Show and to bring you the eco updates that I do.
Absolutely. So, we're happy to have you. Thank you, Belinda Waymouth. Bye. Happy Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye-bye.
More.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, it is the Mark Thompson Show. My thanks to David Katz, to Belinda Waymouth, to Robin Keats as well, and Mark Thompson, and to Albert. And thank you to all of you for being in the chat. It's been a little squirrely in the chat today, Albert.
Yeah, we had somebody kind of get off the rails earlier, but I mean, you mentioned the rain earlier. I love to play golf, Kim, and this rain this week has canceled all my plans.
Oh, Albert, no.
So at the side gig, I've been picking up some extra hours.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. But are there sports right now on TV for you to watch? I know you're a big sportsy guy.
Yeah, so obviously football.
Yeah.
It's fantasy football playoffs for all my fantasy football players out there. I got eliminated from all my leagues last week, so I'm kind of just trying to get 5th place this year. Kim. No money for me this year, but this Christmas will actually be the first time. Christmas historically known as an NBA holiday, like everybody stays home and watches basketball, and usually the Warriors have been playing for our Northern California folks, and that one Sacramento Kings fan that I kind of trashed, I think last month. But the NBA, the NFL actually will have games on Christmas Day.
Oh, okay. But not the 49ers, right?
I think the Niners might be playing. Let me do a quick little Google search.
And I know I love your traditions. You were telling me about this tradition you have with your cousins, that you do a cousin gift exchange. I love this.
Oh, yeah. We've added some rules to this white elephant. It's like your classic white elephant gift exchange. We added some rules. If you want to steal some items, you do have to take a shot of liquor. So Christmas could get out of hand this year. Yeah, there are 3 games actually on three NFL games, by the way, including the Niners. Niners play the Ravens.
Wow. Do you ever, back to the white elephant exchange, do you ever try to steal back your own gift? Like maybe that's the one you like the most?
Yes. This year I'm strongly thinking of it. I found this. Well, I'm sure none of my family listens to the show, unfortunately, but I did get like a $90 speaker. We have a $50 limit for our white elephant, so I got it on sale for $49.99. So $90, basically a $90 item is going to be there, and I would love to keep it.
Yeah, well, maybe you can thieve it back from an unsuspecting cousin. This will be good stuff. All right. Well, let's thank our listeners for the contributions. We had Pamela jump in earlier with a contribution to the show. Thank you for all the ways you support the show. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. And when you get there, you will find the Patreon link and you will find the PayPal link. And that is how you support the show to help keep it going. We really need you to jump in and support the Mark Thompson Show. And look at that. Ask and you shall receive. It's one of these moments right now that we have going on with a $10 super sticker from Aussie Rolls. Merry Christmas, Mark Thompson Show, Mark, Tim, Albert. Thank you, Aussie Rolls. And thank you for all your great chats through the year as well. Really appreciated having you around and seeing what you have to say about everything. Absolutely. Oh, Becky says, love you talking about me, Albert. Uh-oh.
Yeah, she was she's Becky, love you. You're the Sacramento Kings. You're having a great season. Light the beam. Light the beam, Becky.
So thank you for the contributions. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. You'll see the merch website there as well. A lot of great stuff to order.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow we will bring you Friday Fabulous Florida. Yeah, already. We'll also bring you Michael Schur, and it's going to be a great show. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.